Hi boat people, I'm back at it. Sorry there hasn't been anything posted in a while, but it's winter now. I had to spend the last 3 months all day every day shrink wrapping boats for them to be stored for the winter. But we're back at it. I've got some video of the composite work I did in the gas tank of this boat. I know I skipped a bit of the grinding, like when I removed this board, which obviously needed to go. I did grind the bottom out more before I put the new one in and did a bit more there. But here's a video of the composite work in the gas tank area, and this boat should be done reasonably soon. We'll get the rest of the videos on that up. Then we'll get back to work on our hydrostream restoration. Alright, it's time for this gas tank to come out. In order to accomplish that, we've got to remove our fill and vent tubes there, undo the wiring for the fuel gauge, get rid of a bunch of duct tape. Then there's these little rails that are just screwed to the sides that hold that piece of floor. We'll get rid of those and pull it out of here. To kind of lift this side up, start pulling it out and get these hoses off. This could be interesting. There's the fill. Come on. So with the gas tank gone, I can inspect this area. I'm just going to clean it up, and there's a tiny bit of delamination in the back, but everything seems dry and solid. This board is nice and solid and didn't have anything delaminating on it. It's just got some surface debris. However, on this side there was some delamination, and I've removed the board. This is foam that's behind it, and the wood for the floor bracing and stringer is here, and that's still solid and dry. But the face of this was beginning to rot and delaminating. So I've taken the grinder and there was quite a lip here, taken that down and removed this board. I'll replace that. And then I started picking at this one because this hole was plugged, so water could not escape. And of course I found that it was in fact delaminating and the wood behind it was wet. So I'm going to take the multi-tool, vibe saw, and cut this piece out and rebuild that and fiberglass that back in. And I started picking at the coring underneath the brace for the gas tank, and well, of course that was delaminated and in spots it's wet and rotten. So I'm going to remove this piece of wood and replace that and then fiberglass that in as well. So that was kind of a can of worms I opened up, but I don't want to just leave it. Now this front piece, I went in on the other side, I started picking at it, and all I was able to get off was a little layer of gel coat in one spot, and it's solid, and the glass is solid and the wood is solid. I went down in through here and made sure, and that's good. And the drain tube goes underneath here to the bilge area in the back, which is also very solid. This would be maybe the end of the project or a huge nightmare, but all of our motor mounts back to our transom, I don't have a light, sorry. All of this area is quite solid. There's a little bit of gel peeling in a couple spots, but I don't know if it's even peeling or it's just sort of, that's how it was laid up. I mean, you can see the original glass with gel over it. They just didn't really make it super pretty. But all of this is super solid and it's not delaminating, so I'm happy with that. Even the other side of this board is fine, but this hole was plugged and standing water was able to get in here, and for whatever reason it was on this side. Well, with that board removed, we fortunately didn't really find any more rot, so I just kind of have to grind this back a ways so that I can tab it all in, fillet it and tab it. I'm going to kind of just leave this the way it is and seat it back in there. A couple staples need to go. I don't know why that's stapled. I reckon that board might go all the way across. But the next thing to do is to get the grinder going and find the edges of this board. This is where there just was no filleting, and so I've got to sort of grind all of this glass where there was good filleting away until I can find the edges of this board and remove it. Then I can remake that board and the ones that go over here so that it looks like this side, glass it all in, and I can get some gel on the top of it. I'm probably just going to end up using black gel, so I may even tape a line. Probably not. All of this is good under here, so I'm not going to mess with it. But for here, I'll have to come back a little ways. Kind of hard to grind stuff away from this. And then I'll end up with black gel kind of rolling over this board when I recreate it and into here a bit. So I'm working on finishing up this gas tank area where I had to replace boards that had rotted because the drain hole that I have to put here was plugged and water pooled here. So I've got the smaller boards in already and the side and the rear that'll support my piece of flooring. But when they put this plywood down on the bottom, it looked like they just sort of set it there and then tabbed it in with not a lot of filleting, drilled holes in it, and poured their foam through the holes of the plywood to try to fill this cavity. Now the foam is all dry. I could dig it out of there and use the same method, but it didn't work all that well the first time. So I've ground down the filleting in the glass so it's pretty smooth, and my plan is actually to take some 2-part foam and pour it just in these void areas. I don't want to put a ton in here because it expands so quickly, and then take my board And I've got a layer of fiberglass on the one side of it, just chop strand matting, mostly to seal it. Put that down on the foam while it's wet and expanding. Put a couple batteries on it and seat it that way. Then I can fillet the edges and lay up some fresh fiberglass in this whole area. This board didn't get replaced. This side wasn't rotten, so I've just sort of ground it and sanded it a bit to get down to the glass and have something to attach to, because I want to fillet this area and I want the whole thing to be a fresh layer of glass before I gel coat it and put the gas tank back in here. Let's see how that works. I think that's actually going to work. This stuff really expands though, and I think I might want to put another weight on here or just stand here a minute and make sure it can kind of expand out the sides instead of push my board up. So I realized I'm using words like filleting and stuff, and not everyone's going to know what I'm talking about. So what am I going to do to fillet the boards in there? Well, I'm going to take this vinyl ester laminating resin. This is fiberglass resin. Then I'm going to mix in a bunch of Cabicel to thicken the resin. I'm also going to add some milled fibers, 1/4 inch chop strand fiberglass. Then I'm going to take a stick and fill in the edges to make it round, so that when I lay up my fiberglass matting, it isn't trying to go into this harsh 90-degree and causing an air pocket. Now this is a structural method. After I do that filleting everywhere, I'm going to use just some thickened resin to kind of smooth it all out, and then I'll fiberglass the whole thing in together. Got our gas tank area and the front part of the bilge all glassed in and taped off. It's time to mix up some gel coat and get that over the top of it. I'm just going to use black because that's what I've got. These faces have a layer of glass on them. Everything's filleted and tabbed in, and then a layer on top of all the tabbing. Used vinyl ester resin and 1808 matting. With a couple layers of gel coat over our fresh fiberglass, a nice drain hole in the proper place that will allow any water that does get out of here to escape back into the bilge area, which is the front part re-glassed and black gel over the top of. Again, all of the motor mounts and the transom was solid. There was no delamination back there. It was just the one side really, and this back board and the board down here that was rotten. So we laid up some 1808 over all our new boards and some gel coat to protect it all, and got that ready to put the gas tank back in. Now I've rebuilt the floor, and it's time to get that all glassed up together and ready to put in the boat. So here we have what's going to become our flooring to go over the gas tank area. This is the main piece, and this is the bottom side of it. And it's only 1/2 inch marine grade, and that's as much as we can allow in this area, because the gas tank has necks and it needs to have the fuel fill and the fuel vent going out the side. And there's just not enough room for any more material in there. But a 1/2 inch piece of plywood spanning this far could have some flex to it, and we don't want that. So we've got these two bigger pieces that we're going to put here and here just to add some rigidity. We're going to fiberglass them down by adding this layer of chopped strand matting to this board. Then putting resin on these pieces, smashing them down where they need to go, adding some weights and a few staples. On the other side of these boards, there's already a layer of chopped strand matting. So then I'll go ahead and take some vinyl ester resin and just hit the edges and make sure everything is sealed, and we'll have our floor ready to put the carpet on the other side. finally reinstalling the gas tank in here, and I've got a couple of tricky parts to do. The first thing though was I checked the fuel sending unit to see if my gas gauge worked, and it didn't. And I thought, oh boy, I don't think it's a wiring issue, because I've gone through most of that already. There's just a bunch of random stuff I got to remove and just tidy things up. Everything works though. So I picked up a universal one, and these are super simple. They've just got really long shanks on them, and you can cut them and then adjust it to size so that it will fit in your gas tank, and full is full and empty is empty. Yeah, they just come really long. Cut them, adjust them, and they're all pretty universal as far as the way they fit into the top of the tank. So now when I turn the power on, I actually have a fuel gauge that works full, not full, and it's all smooth the way it's meant to be. So now we'll shove him down in there. Now we'll shove that guy down in there and install him properly and make sure it's leak free. And then I've got these vent and fill tubes coming through the PVC and going out the side of the boat. Now the fill tube is like exactly the right length, and I have to put a C-clamp on here from underneath, but I also have to get this down in there and in the tube and silicone in here. So I'm going to try to get it attached to the gas tank and then get it all jammed down the hole with silicone, my nuts and bolts, and my clamp. Thing to hook up inside here, and that's the fuel to the motor. Not much to that, but these fittings I did take out. These two were removed and were then replaced after the gas tank was cleaned with some thread compound, obviously rated for gasoline. Now we've got the hose that goes to feed the carburetor, and we did have him plugged while we were working in here. I'll clean now. These two hose clamps go on, and this will be a done deal. We can go ahead and put our fill neck back on. That's going to be a bit more challenging because down in here, I'm not even sure if I can get the camera to see it. But the fuel fill runs from that cap all the way down through here to the tank, and I gotta crawl in that little hole and get him attached. Then we can fill it up, pressure test it, and make sure that we are not leaky. Gotta clean up my excess silicone around that. Come down in here and get my hose clamps. Golly, you can't even see. Right there on that, which is the fill tube going to the gas tank. Then I can test for leaks and finally put the floor back in this boat. gas tank area complete and the flooring back on.